You're listening to Coffee and Culture. We're on 103.7 and AM 1260 KTRC out of Santa Fe, streaming on santafe.com. My name is Matthew Chase Daniel, and I'm your host every other week. And this week we have two guests, Julia Lambright, who I just spoke with a little bit ago, and Suzanne Sbarge, who I'm speaking with now. And they are both having exhibitions that open at the same time at Gallery Hojo, which is in downtown Albuquerque at 2000 Bellama Northwest. And that show, there's an opening reception on Saturday, August 8th from 5 to 7 p.m. And the show runs for a while. To October 8th. October 6th.
October 6th, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not wearing my glasses, otherwise I could tell the 6 from the 8 better. So welcome, Suzanne. So nice to have you here.
Yeah,
Uh,
thanks for having me.
yeah. So Suzanne and I have known each other a little bit for about 28 years.
Yeah,
I
it's
counted
true.
it up.
Wow.
We met, maybe you were working at the Harwood. Did you used to work there?
Yeah.
Yeah. For that vehicle show that was
Yeah.
at the Harwood and at CCA or Plan B or one of those
Yeah.
iterations of
It was
CCA.
Plan B. Yeah.
In and I'd just been in New Mexico for whatever 8 years or so. You'd been here a little longer, and we were both born in 1965 and grew up in Connecticut. So
Funny. Yeah.
yeah. Um, anyway, you for this show, you're showing work that most or all of it comes out of this residency you did in Ogden, Utah last year. And from what I understand, that's sort of the biggest, longest residency you've done. You've worked for years as a museum director and curator and arts administrator and worked as an artist throughout that whole time, but in the last 2 years, 3 years, something like
Two and
that.
a half years. Yeah. 2.5
Yeah,
years.
you've stepped away from doing that big full-time administrative work and put more time into the art making and the exhibition work. And so, congratulations, that's exciting.
Thank you. It was a big leap and it continues to be a leap, but I will never regret it. It's great to have that sense of freedom of not being a director.
Yeah, as someone, I do both sides of that as well to some degree. And there's a lot of satisfaction in being the director and managing, and as I think you put it, shouting from the rooftops about other people's things. Um,
Yeah.
and then there's a relief when you don't have that and a sort of quietness that can come into your life, perhaps, and give birth to new bodies of work that maybe have less time to percolate in when you're doing a full time job.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I'm really enjoying it. I also have gotten into teaching collage and painting workshops and love doing that as well. It's super fun, and I teach in Santa Fe, and it's become a regular thing for me.
Nice. And so the show you did in Ogden and the residency, a lot of the work there is related to Antelope Island, which I had never heard of until today. But I looked it up on Google Maps and
Yeah.
zoomed in and tried to get a sense of it. But tell me a bit about Antelope Island.
Well, it's a really magical place. When I got this residency, which kind of came out of the blue. They invited me to apply. I had been nominated, and I actually wasn't going to them to apply, but they asked me to apply. So I thought, okay, sure, I'll apply. But I really didn't think I would get it. And then when I did, I was just blown away and kind of terrified because it was a 2-month residency with a lot of production built into it. But I initially, as when the opportunity arose to apply, I started thinking about that area and looking into the what's happening in with wildlife and the natural world there, because that's really what inspires my work. And that's when I learned about Antelope Island. It's a state park, actually, and it's a remarkably ecologically diverse place. There's just so many different species that are there or migrate through there, and it's very remarkable for that reason. There's not really much of a predator. The ecosystem is a very unique one. So um, a lot of species live there that you wouldn't normally see in great numbers and together. And it's an island in the Great Salt Lake, and it's been shrinking. What really inspired this series that I created about Antelope Island initially was learning about the white pelicans, because they um, had one of the largest nesting grounds in the West there off of Antelope Island for a long, long time. And then a few years ago, because of climate change and the Great Salt Lake is rapidly shrinking, their predators could actually walk right into their next nesting grounds. And so they left en masse and just completely vanished. And just last year, I think they came back and they started a new nesting ground in
That was further out and
it was
protected.
safer.
Yeah.
But they came back, and that I felt like in light of climate change, which is endlessly grim, it was like a glimmer of hope that these creatures had this desire to come back, to return, and had a sense of belonging to this place. And it just made me think a lot about all creatures and migration and immigration and the desire to to come back, and ideas of adaptation and belonging and survival, you
Yeah.
know.
And they were able to adapt to a
Yeah,
new
so
spot. Yeah.
they're back. And so that just got me learning about other species there. There's also one of the largest bison herds in the West. It's a large, wild, free roaming bison herd on Antelope Island.
Mhm.
And that's kind of miraculous too. I didn't know much about the bison before that, but I mean, I knew of the historical significance of the whole engineered or effort to eradicate the buffalo along with Native American people who depended on the buffalo. And I um, I was aware of that, but I didn't realize that in New Mexico, like we don't have wild buffalo. Apparently, they're all on ranches. So it was really fascinating to be exposed to a huge herd of wild, free roaming buffalo and just really learn about bison. Bison and buffalo are the same thing, which I didn't know when I started out.
Right.
But so each species has its own story that's fascinating, and history and metaphor that relates to human struggles as well. So I just really ended up focusing in on these interconnections between living beings and the natural environment, and um, that sense of we're all part of the same, we're all interconnected, and we're all part of the natural world. And so Antelope Island is not only great for all the species that are there, which is so remarkable, but it's just stunningly dramatic. And there's the time I went early in the morning, I got there in late August and it was still really hot. So I got there at like 7:30 in the morning. And there was when you drove into I forget what they call it, the causeway.
Hmm.
When you drive onto the island, there was just white cracked ground in a lot of areas that just went on and on into the distance, really white, and then these very dark shadows. And right away, I just felt like, oh my God, like this is where these surreal scenes play out on this in this cracked, dramatic,
Is the white all salt?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
salt and minerals and
Years ago, I went out to the Great Salt Lake somewhere, I think on the western side of it, and basically drove to where I felt I could drive to, and then started walking to the edge, and which was impossible. It was like dry, and then it was kind of wet with a crust, and you're squishing through, and you can't tell if the water is 100 feet or a mile ahead of you. because it's
Yeah,
all shimmering and it's very surreal, weird landscape.
very surreal. And my work is surreal and weird. So it just, the combination of all the species and the surrealness of it and the drama and the light, I was just, enamored of it immediately.
Yeah, and a lot of your work are these combinations of animals or humans and animals and flowers, and in terms of this sort of adaptation and anomalies, um,
Yeah.
that all makes a lot of sense in terms of the work you've been doing. We have to go to a break, but we'll be right back talking with Suzanne Sbarge. You're back listening to Coffee and Culture. My name's Matthew Chase Daniel. I'm talking with Suzanne Sbarge, who's an artist in Albuquerque, having a show at Gallery Hojo. One thing you were doing in that's part of this show and that you were doing in Utah is cyanotypes. And
Yeah.
they're some of them feel very related to work of yours I've seen before, the collage and painting work in terms of these sort of combinations. Although they're somewhat more of a one tonality throughout, so it you don't see the collaginess of it as much. And then others which are maybe historical photographs. Um,
Yeah. I
that's
was given
fascinating. I love
access
those.
to some. There's a college in Ogden, Utah called Weber State University, and it's a fantastic school with an amazing art department. But they put me in touch with an archivist there, so I had access to this historic photo archive to work with, and I got fascinated with the cyanotypes. I felt like it was a really good fit for working with the Salt Lake because the basically cyanotypes are made from a variation of salt and water and sunlight. And so the elemental quality of it just seemed like now's my time to do cyanotypes because I've always done photography. In fact, I did photography before I did collage and painting, and then I ended up focusing in on doing mixed media paintings, but I still have this great love of alternative processes in photography. I love painterly effects that you can get, like with pinhole photography. I did a lot of that. So I jumped off, the deep end there and just I'd never made a cyanotype before, but I just started doing it and learning more and more about how to make them work. And I totally fell in love with that process. It's really, really a magical process. Part of my way of working is like I want to be surprised. I don't want to know what's going to happen. I want to be surprised in the process. So
Hmm.
that cyanotypes, each one comes out totally different. And as much as you try to control the time and the light and all the elements, they have their own life and their own personality. So I did a whole series of them called specimens that were these animal human hybrids or just animals from Antelope Island. And kind of in a laboratory format and hung with clothespins. And but yeah, I did a lot of work in mediums that I hadn't worked in before. And that was part of my proposal to Ogden Contemporary Arts to work with stop motion animation. And I had planned to work on cyanotypes. One thing I didn't plan, but just happened there, was making 3D printed sculptures from my two-dimensional collages, which
Hmm.
was mind expanding and wild. And that's where the name Anomalies came from for my exhibition, because in the process of making a 3D model of a 2D collage, um, they can come out weird and unexpected things can happen in
Because
that
you're
process.
using AI 3D modeling software and inputting
Basically,
something or
for
something.
one step of it, the AI
Yeah.
is interpreting what I'm feeding into it. So one of the characters, I was printing these 3D printed objects where in the printing process, there's these trees that hold them up as they're being printed. And then afterwards, you have to break off the trees and sand it. And I had this deer figure with these big antlers, but I knew the antlers were going to break in the process. So I thought, okay, I'll make it female and I'll take off the antlers and I'll make the ruff smaller. And then it ended up coming out with a bald man's head and two tails and these weird butt flaps. And at
Hmm.
first I was horrified, but then I was like, it's an anomaly and it's fascinating. And it's so anyway, that's how the title came about. But each of the animals,
Nice.
they're all fluid and when it comes to species and gender and time periods. They blend, historic photos of people's faces with animals and the time period. It's very I guess fluid is the best
Yeah.
word to
Well, that's
describe them.
how we all evolved, right? And how plants
Yeah,
and animals and people all evolved is through variance, right?
yeah,
There's now, I think, hummingbirds in the West Coast are of the shape of their beaks is evolving to fit better into those little plastic bird feeders
yeah.
that feed hummingbirds, the little sugar juice, because
Oh,
there's
wow.
so many people are feeding them that's a adaptive trait
Yeah.
that helps them thrive. Um,
So yeah, so these pieces that I did are kind of like a fantasy of different variations of adaptation
right.
and also the idea that um we learn from animals.
Yeah. There's also this word I learned a couple of weeks ago called holobionts, HOLOBIONTS, which are creatures that we used to think are one creature, but they're in fact like the Portuguese man of war. What is that, a stingray or a jellyfish or something? It's actually four distinct species that can only live as a unit together. Um,
Interesting. I'm always looking
or
for words like that for
yeah,
the metaphors for these things I create.
yeah, coral, like a coral reef.
Yeah,
There's the coral itself, but then there's an algae maybe that lives in the coral that is able to digest things and feed the coral, and they can't live without each other. They're like one
yeah.
biotic thing. And so,
Symbiotic. Yeah.
yeah, so looking at your work where it's, people with antlers and
Yeah.
flowers coming out of trumpets coming out of deer heads and um, was reminding me of that word and those things.
Well, I have a lot of fun making it. And one of the things that I concentrated on in Utah was also connecting with people of all ages, including kids who had a great time with this way of working. So not only did I make the exhibition in 2 months, but I taught workshops and then I did a public art project where we wrapped a city bus in this imagery that the students had made in my workshops. And we did 12 billboards around northern Utah,
Oh,
digital
wow.
billboards. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I
And
saw pictures of the bus. It looked great.
yeah, it was really fun. So kids anywhere from 6 years old to people in their 80s took these workshops and it was really fun. Like people literally are laughing while they're doing it because they're creating these creatures that are funny and challenge your imagination. And so I really enjoyed working with people there. I also had a lot of young artists who worked with me as assistants and collaborators, and that was just so fun to be in the position of being the artist and having all these people support the vision that I was pursuing after so many years of doing that for other artists. So,
Yeah,
it was a special moment. But
that's
I'm
great.
really excited to bring this work to my local community.
Yeah, and
So,
you're going to be doing a workshop at Gallery Hojo as well on August
yeah,
26th, I think.
23rd, August. No, I'm sorry. I'm doing it on September 23rd.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
have
the
the
date
wrong information here.
changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so if anyone wants to go to that workshop, go to galleryhojo.com events and you can find information about that.
Yeah.
Exciting. And then there's also a gallery talk you and Julia Lambright will be doing in maybe September 5th, if that's
Yes,
still the
September
right date.
5th, it is at 3 p.m. at Gallery Hojo with Suzanne Frick, the director of the gallery and an amazing scholar herself.
Yeah, she's great. She was on this show a few years ago when she wrote that book of
Uh,
about indigenous photography. Well, she didn't really
uh,
write it. She edited it and got everyone to tell their own story, which was kind of great.
yeah.
Um, and we don't have much time left, but your studio process is more you're not going in like, okay, I'm going to take this animal, I'm going to put these things on it, and it's more letting things emerge out of a sort of quiet space. Is that right?
Definitely. I mean, I in Utah, I really focused on place-based work, which I hadn't done before because in my studio, usually all my collage stuff, it's from all over and it's not like a specific, it's not place-based, I guess. But I had to prepare certain materials that related to that environment. So it got me really thinking about place in a new way. And that's something I want to continue doing and really looking at this same kind of perspective of Antelope Island, but really looking across regions and countries and globally, these kinds of interconnections and forms of migration and adaptation. So I feel like it's a long-term project, but did I miss your
Yeah.
question?
No, that's good. Yeah, and I think sometimes like going away from home and plopping yourself into some somewhat unfamiliar environment can be really inspiring and help your
Yeah.
eyes see what's around in a new way, which is
Yeah.
great.
And the
Um,
desert there and the desert here, there's a lot of similarities in the high deserts. There's a lot of
yeah,
the animals are the same animals. Not all of them though, because they have all these seabirds there, like a
right.
wealth of seabirds that are just so beautiful.
We got to go. We're out of time.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Suzanne.
Thank you, Matthew.
All right. I'll see you soon.